On a 1 to 10 relative to our other guests, how prepared are you for Royce?
Oh, I've been looking forward to talking to Royce.
Oh, you think I should? Hi, Royce.
Hey guys, how are you?
That you were avoiding answering the question. Let me see if I ask you on a 1 to 10 how prepared you are, and then you say I'm looking forward to talking to him. What does that mean, Brian? Does that mean like you're really prepared, or like?
Yeah, you could you could sit back for a little while on this one, I think.
Oh man, I regret asking you now. Regret asking. You just got into my head.
No,
You're
you
supposed
know
to
I'll
say
always
something.
follow your lead.
You're supposed to say, "I'm here to support you, Sevan."
Of course.
Hi, Royce.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. Thanks for doing this. What time is it? Where you're at?
It's 8 a.m.
Oh, thanks. We are, and it's 8 a.m. on what day?
Thursday.
Thursday. So it's 3 p.m. here on Wednesday, and I think it's 5 o'clock where you're at, Brian.
Correct.
Are you near Melbourne? Where are you? What city are you in?
So I'm in Brisbane, which is
Okay.
pretty much on the center of the East Coast. So
Okay.
Melbourne is like a 3 to 4 hour flight from here, or like a 2 day drive, like 20 hours, 18 hours.
Are you allowed out of your house more than 2 hours a day?
Yeah, so Brisbane is where like open for business. There's like we do like a check-in on an app when you go to like a restaurant or something, and there's like every business needs to have a COVID safe plan, but we had our semi-final here, and we were allowed to have a full capacity stadium. We've got football games on with full stadiums. Like just you can travel as far as you want. It's all good.
Amazing. Well, good for you. Were you ever locked down for? Were you ever told that like you could only come out of your house 2 hours a day in the city you're in?
Yeah, in the middle of like the middle of 2020, it was like the when the whole world was in lockdown. We were locked down as well, and it wasn't too bad. We got out of that lockdown pretty quick, and our state has been doing pretty well. Like Melbourne, Victoria, the state that Melbourne's in, they just like re-locked down this week. They're supposed to get out of lockdown on Saturday. They've been locking down like it feels like once a month. They've been doing a snap lockdown because they just keep getting clusters and not knowing where they're coming from. And yeah, the government's got a couple of problems down there, I think.
Do people actually obey the lockdown?
Well, they're very used to it in Melbourne, so I think they have been, and it's pretty steep fines if you're busted. To my knowledge, I don't think anyone's been fined. It's more just the threat of it. Um, but yeah, everyone was pretty compliant here in our state as well. No one was really mucking around too much.
Yeah. Well, in the city I'm in, no, I don't. Well, I guess some people did because there was no traffic, but I just ignored all that shit. I just rolled. I just didn't. It just like, I just rolled. I got stuff to do. I have parks and beaches to go to, and
Yeah,
dogs to walk, and fresh
that's the
air
whole
to
point of
breathe.
America, right? That's the whole point of America.
I guess, yeah. Maybe you should come here and run for president.
Yeah. Well, so it's a little different here because we're technically not a republic. We're not a republic at all. We're still a colony, and so it's not the freedom doesn't it's not quite the same. Like there's no freedom of speech, and if we can't go somewhere, we can't go somewhere. You can't really pull the old constitution argument because it's not how it works here. So. But as a smaller country, it's just in general a bit tamer anyway, so it wasn't too bad.
You're a huge country. I don't think people realize how big you are with a relatively small population.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So Australia is roughly 93% the size of the US, so it's almost identical to the US. But the population, I think, is maybe 25 mil max, so about the same as California.
How
Yeah.
much of the country is uninhabitable, really?
It depends who you ask. Like the native Australians, the Aborigines, like inhabit all through like everywhere. You name it, there's been someone living there. So, but settlement wise, like yeah, white Australia tends to be pretty much on the coasts. There's not a lot going on in the middle. It'd be mostly like farmland and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of like similar, I guess, to America with the like reservations. There's a lot of land that's been given back to the Aboriginals. It's like their territory, and they can kind of do whatever they want with it and kind of keep intruders out, I guess, for lack of a better word. So there's a lot
But
of
they
areas
can't
like
keep
that.
Coca-Cola out. But they can't keep Coca-Cola out.
Yeah, you've seen the or what's that movie where they dropped the bottle in Africa? Gods Must Be Crazy.
Oh yeah, wow! That movie was out before you were born. Holy cow!
Yeah,
What a deep breadth and depth of cultural knowledge you have, Brian. We're sending people to Mars. They could pump the water in from their ocean. They could pump in 2 trillion gallons of water if they wanted to the center of their country. Run it through a desalination plant and make the world's biggest lake. Those are smart people in Australia. That whole place is inhabitable.
I mean, look what they did with Dubai. Like, so that was the same. Like, there's that photo of Dubai in one of the hotels where it's like 30 years ago it was literally a desert. And so there's plenty of space on Earth for people, but it's not cost effective. So they just keep overpopulating the 10 locations on Earth that are nice to live in, and leave the rest of it untouched.
Brian, where did you have Royce ranked? What was your guess for? Boy, I'm really putting you on the hot seat nonstop today. What was your rank? What did you predict he would place in the semifinals at the Torium Pro in Australia?
Prior to seeing the programming, I had him about 5th or 6th. After I saw the programming, I bumped him up to 2nd.
Oh, very honest. If I was you, I would have just said 2nd. That was very honest of you. And what did you see in the programming that made you think that bumped him up?
Well, I know that there are about half a dozen, maybe 8 guys in Australia that on any given weekend could have taken those top 3 spots, or at least that's what I think there is the case. And so when I saw the programming coming out, I put those 8 guys on a sheet of paper and I looked at all the workouts and I gave a plus or a minus or a 0 if I thought the workout was favorable or not. And in the case of Royce, I had 5 pluses, 1 minus, and 1 neutral workout, and I just thought this program is awesome for him. I have some other just intuitions based on following the guys on Instagram, but I just bumped him up. I said, and I don't always like to make the obvious picks. Like, that was one of those picks where when I put it out there, a lot of people said, oh no, I got Con Porter, I got Baden Brown, I don't think Dunn's going to make it. But I just, kind of knowing his skill set and what he excels at, I thought that it could be a really good weekend for him. Obviously it was, so thank you, Royce, for making me look good.
And being that you're half, you're a descendant of Leonard Nimoy, you didn't let emotion get in the way of your judgment. You went based on his athletic performance and not your love for the past and historical characters.
It's very interesting. Recently, more and more people have messaged me on Instagram when I put out the rankings, and they'll say, you're underrating this person, you're overrating that person, and I always respond and I'll say, well, let me know, what are some things that you see, because that probably I know the person, and a lot of times they're like, I think he's good at this, I think he's good at this, but probably I'm just being emotional because I like the guy or know the guy. So I try to refrain from that. I do know some of the athletes better than others, but I always try to assess what I've seen from them when they have competed and what I know about their strengths and weaknesses. And then, like I said, reading into Instagram is tough. But I think, and Royce, you can tell me what you think about this. I haven't really asked a lot of athletes about it, but I think that sometimes people who take a year or two away from competition, specifically individual competition, that are still in the age range where they can be competitive, and then come back to it. I know, Sevan, you don't necessarily agree with this all the time, but that they can come back and do pretty well. And Royce wasn't necessarily taking time away from competing. He just focused more on team competition. Then obviously they had lockdown. I think he has a pretty good setup there at his house. I think he's following a pretty good program. And so I was expecting him to do well. And then obviously when I saw the programming, I thought he could do really well.
So the question to you, Royce, is, and it's a good one. I've said that if people take time off from the sport, it's very difficult to come back. I believe that there's something in regards to the pain cave that once you leave it, you really, really don't want to go back. I don't think, God, this is stupid to say again because I already fought with Matt once, put a ripple on a relationship. I don't believe Matt can take a year off and come back and win it. But yours, there's a nuance or a different factor to you. What Brian is saying is you took a year off from individual, but you stayed in the game. You stayed in team competition. And how did that affect you?
Yeah, I think I'm probably inclined to agree with you, Sevan. I think if you take a year off, not that it couldn't happen, but I think that would be like the hardest situation to come back from. As you say, like it's like you're a rookie again in a way, because even just you don't even know like what the lay of the land is as far as the athletes are, from the last year. You haven't seen the performances, and it's just you got to think. Well, it also I guess depends on why you took the time off, um, overcoming that particular obstacle and bring yourself, yeah, as you say, back into the cave. I think that's quite tough to do. And I had a kind of a micro version of that myself, just like coming from the team back to the individual. It was like if I'd forgotten what the pressure of individual is compared to team. Team is for me at least is mostly fun. Like yes, you don't want to be the person who lets your team down, so you feel a pressure to be to perform in the moment. But when you're actually just sitting there like in those stalls about to go out for an event, and you realize that like it's all of your own back, and if you look dumb out there, it's your fault. That's pretty daunting. So that was hard to come back from, even just in that regard. But at least I had been, as I said, been competing. I knew what the athletes were like, and I knew what I could do at certain workouts, and so I still felt very much comfortable from that aspect. But mentally, yeah, that pressure hit pretty hard. What I thought I was used to, but it was different. Like it was a harsh comeback, I suppose.
And the exception to that might be women and I say that because women who take a year off to have a baby, they seem to come back with some
Yeah, I was about
ferocity,
to
man.
say, actually, there is a good track record in CrossFit for the mums who come back like the next year, which is crazy because if I had even just like a minor abdominal injury that mimicked birth, I feel like you'd need the whole next year just to like retrain. But I think that goes back to what I was saying about why you have the year off. If it's something like that, that's um, obviously, like it's without getting too deep into it. There's no one gets through a new child experience unscathed, like just physically, but also the stress of having a new kid. Even like your postpartum depression is far more common than people think. Like there's all kinds of battle scars you'll carry, but it's generally a positive experience. Obviously, like it's mostly something you want, and if it was accidental, you still obviously are grateful for the gift, and so you're having this mostly positive year, and you're also can't wait to get back because if you could have a baby without having to be pregnant or take time off, who wouldn't want to wave their wand, right? So it's you are trying to get back, and so you're kind of hungry. If your year off was because you're burning out and you want a year off, well then you got to drag yourself back into it the next year, and so it's maybe a lot harder to convert that year back. But yeah, the track record of the girls who come back from babies in this sport is pretty intense. I think it's almost a near perfect record.
Ladies and gentlemen, post all your negative comments to Royce for comparing a minor abdominal injury to being pregnant. Although I think it's beautiful, I want to tiptoe out of the room. Maybe what if you took a year off and you made yourself strap like a 25-pound vest to you for 9 months? So you took to mimic being born. Maybe they're actually cheating. They're getting some sort of hormonal advantage, and they've strapped for 9 months of their workout, because these women keep working out while they're pregnant,
Oh yeah,
and
100%.
maybe it's just weight vest training that makes it so that they can come back so strong. And then they have that one minor hiccup that's called the birthing process. But whatever, any chump could do that.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, that's kind of like the point, right? Is that there's no real comparison to it, and it quite literally is training through adversity. It's a very, I don't know, twisted definition of the train hard and fight easy. But I think the problem is, the kicker is that after the birth, there's a lot more. It doesn't actually get easier straight away. Like you do get like a dump of hormones, and I've had so many pregnant women from our gym tell me they felt so strong in their last trimester, like physically
Yep.
strong, and then after the birth they were like weak again because you're losing all these extra red blood cells, you're losing all these hormones. Your body is like just gone through mass trauma, and so it's healing. And so yeah, you actually come out far weaker in a weird way, and it's so that has a physical toll, but also it has a mental toll as well, where you feel obviously like a bit in tatters, sleep schedules out of control, all kinds of things.
The sleep, man.
Yeah, it's not just the lack of sleep; it's the broken sleep. That's what breaks you. And then there's so much. People don't talk about it enough, I guess, or at least not publicly. I suppose it's up to the individual, but there's so much more mental health stuff that goes on too with mums. Like mum guilt's a real thing. You want to get back to your life, but you feel guilty because you should be loving this kid like more than anything else. So so there's all these conflicting emotions, and it really can mess with people. And people don't realize what that is like. I mean, I saw it with my wife, and she's not even like an athlete. Like she wasn't rushing back to compete. It was just simple things like, oh, I just want to sit down and watch a TV show, but I feel so guilty because I shouldn't want to watch a TV show more than I love my baby, right? But it's a really false equivalency. Like it's not a person who takes so much. You need to like have something back for yourself, and so it's pretty deep battle. That post birth thing. So I think that honestly, I mean, I've never experienced it obviously, but I would have to say based on what I've seen, the physical toll of birth is the least of the worries. It's that mental, emotional, it's the long journey after that, that makes it all the more crazy that these girls are requalifying in that year, going through all that. Like, I guess in a weird way, maybe it makes the competition side the easiest thing they've done that year. Perspective is everything, right?
How many kids do you have?
We've got 3 now.
And how old are you?
I'm 30.
Wow, you're like chasing down Travis Mayer.
Mayer.
You're chasing down Travis Mayer. Are you having more?
Is he 4 now? It's Travis 4.
Yeah, I think so. I think he just had his 4th.
Yeah.
Are you going to have more?
You never say never, but Laurie, my wife, has called it. She's like, nah, that's it.
And
so
how old is she?
No plans. She's 34.
Okay. Yeah, and another thing interesting is this probably age plays a part in that too, because my wife and I waited till she was 39 and I was 43, and I could have never if I would have had a baby at your age at 30, between 30 and 40 were my grinding years. I mean, I literally worked every second I was awake 365 days a year. And so then by the time my kids came, I was like tapped. I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm good with working. I'll just spend all this time. 30, yeah, it's an impressive time. I mean, you're kind of in your peak manhoodness. Everything you built in the first 30 years now has to be put to work. And how tall are you?
So I still don't actually know. I had on my license for the longest time 183 centimeters, which is like maybe half an inch over 6 foot. But then I've measured myself randomly since then, and I've even come up with 185 at times. So I'm somewhere between 83 and 85 centimeters, 183, 85, but bang on 6 foot, basically, just over 6 foot.
And how much do you weigh?
About 105 kilo at the moment, so 231, 232.
Woo! Yeah, you look very thick in your photos. You look like a very large man. Well, it doesn't matter how tall you are, how much you weigh, what you think. Brian will tell us. Brian, how tall is he and how much does he weigh? Tell him so we can solve the mystery for him.
If he hadn't said that, I would have guessed that he was 6'1", 220. So it would have been a little off on the weight.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
how
a little shorter than you think. A little heavier.
How much will you weigh when you show up to the games?
I can only assume I'll be down to like 102, like 225. We're doing a lot more endurance training. I mean, I've actually ironically been running more and swimming more this year, or like 2020 to 2021, than any other year. But I also started doing more weightlifting again than I have been in the last few years, and so I didn't think I'd put on weight, but we did some like testing, some force testing stuff, and they obviously weigh you before it. And yeah, I was like 105, 106. So I've gone up like 5 to 8 pounds.
Are you doing more of that stuff because of the program you're following?
Well, literally that testing day was just. Oh, sorry, the weightlifting you mean?
The weightlifting, the running, the swimming.
Yeah, the running, the swimming is just it's just always been a weakness that I'm just not an endurance athlete, and so just been slowly improving that across my career, I guess. And like Rich does do a lot of that, so it's more just making it a priority and getting it in each week rather than it's the first thing that you skip in a week, right? When you're busy, well, at least I do, is the running and the rowing. Everyone loves to keep the metcons and the weightlifting in. But then also, ironically, I haven't been doing that much strength these last couple of years because it wasn't a weakness, and I wanted to put more time and effort into the conditioning. But I started getting back into the Bergener strength stuff. It was more complexes and just working on the technique, right? Being able to just make sure I'm still moving well rather than just trying to add weight per se. But yeah, just the extra volume has added some mass.
What's Rich's program called? Mayhem.
So one of the elements of it is they do Mayhem Bergener strength. So they're working with Mike Bergener and Sage Bergener, and they write all the weightlifting programming for all the Mayhem tracks.
And then what is the other programming you do? It's Rich's programming, and what's it called? Is it like Mayhem Competitors, or what is it?
Yeah, so the actual program is called Mayhem Athlete, and then they have a bunch of tracks, and the one I follow is the What's Rich Doing. So literally Rich just texts what he's done that day to Jake, and Jake writes it into the software, and it publishes 2 weeks behind him, so they never have to worry about a lag. Whereas I think a fair few of the Mayhem athletes do Mayhem Compete, which is where Jake and Rich actually sit down and program it, and often they will do the Mayhem Compete workout as their workout. So when you look at What's Rich Doing, there's a lot of overlap, just a couple of weeks behind it.
Don't you need to be doing? How long have you been following his programming?
Since July of 2016.
Okay, so for a long time. So you're a happy customer. You're getting results. You're like, I found my spot. Okay, yeah. But if it's lagging 2 weeks behind, and this is the training he's doing to prepare himself for the CrossFit Games, shouldn't you be getting it maybe 2 weeks ahead of time now?
Yeah, so around big events like a regionals or the semifinals, we'll change up a little bit. So obviously I got a crew here as well at my gym that they'll train with, so we might improv some of the workouts heading into the semifinals. But then this year, for example, they had a track. They set up a temporary track for each of the semifinals, so you can go into the Mayhem, into the Sugar Wad, and choose I'm competing at Torium Pro, and they've got all the workouts. Obviously got them from the Instagram, and they've got the work efforts of the workout design to peak you into the week. Did the same thing for Mac, did the same thing for Granite. And then leading into the games, I'll Jake just added me to a text thread with a few of the other qualifiers, and so they're sending us what Rich is doing. It'll be Wednesday your time. I'll get today what Rich did today, as in the day you guys just lived. And then so we're following that along, and then I'll get over to the States as early as I can, probably early July, and I'll head up to Tennessee, and we'll train up there, and we'll kind of put together a bit of a camp. And so yeah, prepping into the event, I'll be training day in, day out with them. And just throughout the year, the 2 weeks is never the Open, for example. I kind of don't, especially this year with the top 10% thing, I didn't really bother peaking for it. I just followed What's Rich Doing until it was technically 2 weeks before the Open, and then just did the Open and kind of skipped ahead to the training after the Open. So it's not a big deal most of the year, and then, as I said, around the big comps, there's procedures in place to help us, those of us who've qualified get the most success we can.
Look at me trying to find a hole in Rich's programming, and you're like, I get on a special text thread with Rich because I qualified for the game. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Is there any difficulty or concern about being able to travel to the United States?
I'm not, nothing's a lock, I guess, so I'm not trying to get too excited, but I've spoken to a lot of guys here in Australia who are both Australians who have traveled to the US for work, as well as a couple of US citizens that come here for work. And apparently it's not that hard. You just, the Home Affairs, it's called, Australia, the Home Affairs, you just kind of keep reapplying for an exemption. If they knock you back, you just reapply with more info until basically you wear them down, is what I've been told. People are no, just keep reapplying. They eventually, if you make a big enough deal and you have enough supporting documents, they'll just let you go.
And is CrossFit helping with that? Do they send you any like a something on gold parchment with a signature of with Dave Castro's signature on it?
So, well, straight away, like the day after, they sent us like the official letter with an invite, as well as obviously you get the online invite and all that kind of thing in the email to actually register. But they sent us like a proper letter, and then our like Australia New Zealand CrossFit HQ manager, his name was Ed. He wrote all the athletes a special letter signed by Rosa that like talks about our status as an official, as a professional athlete in the sport of CrossFit and so on. So those are the first two documents. I tried the application last night with that. I should hear back from the Australian government either today or tomorrow. And if they knock me back then I'll hit up CrossFit to, just keep upping the ante of like more supporting of documents, more official stuff. Maybe, maybe like a letter from Dave if needs be. They've been pretty good. HQ have been really good, proactive, like reaching out to us really early and filling us in a little bit about what the procedure will be like in the States when I get there.
Did a radio turn on behind you?
Yeah, I'm just at the gym and there must be someone hitting the workout because they're cranking the...
Would you mind opening the door and telling them kindly to shut the fuck up? It's fine.
Well, you guys, like the group of athletes that qualified, if you find some success in getting over here and you know that Baden or Jay or Car or one of the girls is struggling, will you guys kind of work together and share what's worked to help, try to get everyone over here?
Yeah, definitely. So me and Jay, for example, have already been chatting a bit. He's got a guy, I assume some of all athletes have some like managers and stuff that are helping them with the application process. Even though it's pretty straightforward, actually. When I did it myself, I thought I was going to get someone to help me, but it's actually pretty straightforward. If I get knocked back, I'll get some help for the reapplication just to make sure I'm getting the best chance. But yeah, like for example, I got a little intel from an American I know who just got back to Australia. And the way it works in Australia is that when you get back here, you got to do a 2-week quarantine in a hotel. They like take you from the airport to the hotel, and you can't leave your room for 14 days, and you got to pay 3,000 Australian dollars. So about $1.50 American. So 3,000 Australian, and that you have to pay that. That's like just your price for leaving the country and coming back, I guess. And then, but someone who came from America, she actually had a special case exemption, and she didn't have to pay for it. And they do that. There are exemptions where we don't have to pay. And so I shared that with Ed to tell all the Australian athletes that we very much should be applying for an exemption of like, look, we've just represented the country in sport. Like I know for a fact, like the tennis players when they came for the Australian Open, for example, weren't paying for a quarantine. I mean, they decided to do a different route where you do this like personal quarantine where you can like pay these companies and fly in a private jet. You get to skip all the government stuff, but it costs you like hundreds of thousands. But there are exemptions and precedent for athletes and people who are like representing the country to not have to pay for this quarantine. So I'll definitely be trying to get an exemption there. And I told the other guys about it so they can try to do the same thing. So yeah, we're definitely like in it together.
If
Isn't that amazing? You can pay money to get around it. We have a border with Canada. Canada is the country to our north, and it is the horror stories of Americans crossing the Canadian border are endless, right? Endless. I mean, they harass the shit out of us coming into their country. And yet one time I flew on a private jet from Ohio to Toronto, and we landed, and I think we landed like at 6 o'clock at night, and the customs had already stopped working. So we just got off the jet, no one stamped our passport, and we rolled into the country. And it just makes me realize that this whole thing is theatrics. It's nauseating to me. I'm not against people being rich. I'm not against people paying people to get shit done. But I am against the fact, I mean, I've heard that before too in New Zealand and Australia, that if you pay like $250,000, you can quarantine at home. I'm like, geez, come on, man. Come on,
yes.
Come on,
yeah,
man.
The tennis players did. It's 250 or something grand, and these companies, like special companies, do it for you. They like get you on a private jet. You're in your own bubble in the airport. You never actually go to the public part. You get to land and go straight to like the hotel of your choice, like some 5-star resort, whatever. It's it's the one great discrimination on earth is classism, right? It trumps every other kind of phobia. whatever you want to call it, like racism, sexism, homophobia. It's all comes second to classism. You got enough money, you just, rules for thee but not for me, right? That's just how it goes in every aspect of life, and we know it to be true, right? We see it, like we know that billionaires just live a different life to us, but we kind of just weirdly accept it because we all kind of wish we were the billionaire, right?
Well, and I don't have a problem with that. Like I'm okay with my neighbor driving a much nicer car than me, or finding a job that makes more money than me, or I'm okay. I realize that first class seats are important because they help subsidize. They're really expensive on an airplane, and they help subsidize the ticket costs for the rest of the airplane. And I went in, I don't remember what year it was. It was 2007 or 8, I bought a 1986 Mercedes SEL used for $3,000. And when that car came out on the market, it was the most expensive production car ever made at $106,000. But I bought one mint, 20 years later, and there were great features in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was the first car with an airbag. So I mean, I like the fact that rich people will buy all that stuff. It'll get innovated. Then once enough people have self-parking cars, it trickles down. I'm cool with that. But there's something about not trusting the people to quarantine by themselves. But if you pay enough money, you all of a sudden become trustworthy. That's the part I don't like.
Yeah. I mean,
money shouldn't make you trustworthy or less trustworthy.
I agree with you on principle, and I agree with you with the like the same idea. I'm not like an eat the rich guy. Like I don't care that people have money. Like it's everyone, for the most part, everyone works for it, right? And I think I actually heard it put really well about Bezos, for example, about Amazon. Someone I was watching some talk show, and the guy was like, "Look, I don't begrudge Jeff Bezos for his first couple of billion, because he created a product that we all use it. Like, why is he rich? Because we all buy things from Amazon. Like, we get what we want, right?" He's like, "But I do begrudge him his second billion, which was like when you get so rich and powerful that you start to, what's the word? Cheat the game, I guess. So you start to rig the game, where like everyone's in lockdown except Amazon. Amazon's allowed to keep making millions while small businesses get put out of business. So that kind of thing, right? That comes later, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, you got rich the first time through mostly legitimate means, and as you say, even like the fact that while these companies pay barely any tax, the small amount of tax they do pay is what pays for most things, because our couple of $100 a month from tax definitely doesn't get anything done. And so there's more.
That's a good point.
There's more intricacies to it than just rich people get good stuff. But at the same time, it's like it's not a perfect theory, but it's the same thing with like adoptions, right? Like they make the costs of adoptions so exorbitantly high in the hopes of just weeding out untoward people. And as you say, on principle, money doesn't make you trustworthy or a good person, but at least there's theoretically a bunch of people. It makes crime harder, right? Like if you were walking past a car and it was unlocked, it's a lot easier to steal the change out of the console than if it was locked, right? You can still pick the lock, but maybe you keep walking because you can't be bothered, right? So the higher you raise the bar, it does naturally weed out more undesirables. Of course, there's no guarantee, and you'd be naive to think that just because I can afford a private quarantine doesn't mean I'm not going to screw around and break all the rules, but at least it's somewhere to start from, right?
Right. Well said. I liked how you threw a metaphor in there, the change in the cars. I love a good metaphor.
Yeah, not from personal experience, obviously.
Are you born and raised in Brisbane?
Yeah.
And did you play sports as a kid?
Yes, I played Australian football, it's called. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's very similar to like Gaelic football.
And how old were you when you started that?
5 or 6, like right when I started school.
And is that the only sport you ever played? Did you do gymnastics or soccer or
like I did in school, we did a bunch of different sports, but that was the only sport I played properly. And then Australia's got a pretty good swim and like track and field program in school and high school. It's probably the only program that's pretty comparable to the States, I guess. Like other sports, like it's so funny. Like we had Jesse Williams training here for a while. He played for Alabama for 4 years. I don't know what the university is called, Alabama University, I guess. He won like 4 championships with them. And so he's a superstar, and we were talking about that and how like college coaches or even high school coaches can get paid in the hundreds of thousands or the millions in the States. I mean, in Australia, the football coach is just the PE teacher who's on, 60 grand a year, who just does it. That's his unit cover for that week, for that month. So it's just very much under-resourced compared to the States. But swimming and track, because Australia does decent in the Olympics at both those sports, we'll see like a lot more resource and a lot more programs, and like the scouting infrastructure is a lot better. You'll get good swimmers picked up when they're like 10, whereas, it's not the same as other sports.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I got one older brother, one younger brother, and a younger sister.
Wow. So you're the third oldest.
Second oldest.
Oh, two. How the sister? Say that again. Tell me who's who again.
Older brother, then me, and then a younger sister, and then a younger brother last.
Yeah, doesn't that make you the third oldest?
I mean, I guess semantically, I don't know the difference. Second oldest, third oldest.
Wait, Brian, he's got two younger than him.
Yes.
So he's the second oldest.
No, he's got two younger than him. Oh, second. Okay, right. Sorry. Right. I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Semantics. All right. I'll learn how
percentile. Cookie percentile now.
Is it a competitive group? These four?
Not really. No, my older brother is quite a bit older. He's 5 years older than me, and then me and my two younger siblings are within a 5-year gap. So me and my little brother get on really well. Me and my sister got on great when we were kids because we were very close in age, and my little brother was a bit too young for me to like be competitive with. Like I was always like his older brother, and then me and my sister didn't really compete because it's a different relationship, brother and sister, or at least for us it was. So no, we were all pretty much like our own kind of game.
Are you competitive?
Funnily enough, I wouldn't have said yes, but obviously I am. And when it comes like I actually surprise myself in competition with how hard I go in workouts and the times I put up versus in my training, because in the moment I'm just possessed to like want to beat people. Whereas like in training or in general, I definitely don't relate to that kind of mentality. But it's a bit of a curse that just comes over me, I guess.
What is the most physical discomfort you felt in your life? Like, did you ever? I know you haven't given birth. What is it a CrossFit workout?
I guess that's an easier answer because that's what like is fresh in your head. I'm trying to think of any injuries I've had like really bad. I'm pretty fortunate. I've never really broken anything or any physical injury I've had hasn't been massively painful for whatever reason. Like I ruptured all the ligaments in my ankle actually at the 18 regionals, but I kind of barely felt it. Yeah, as sad as it sounds, I think honestly, yeah, the most pain I've been in was probably a CrossFit workout. Sounds very sheltered, doesn't it?
What, Brian? You're perplexed. You're not buying it. You know something that happened to him.
I didn't know that. You ruptured all your ligaments in your ankle in 2018 regional. That was the year you qualified and made the games.
Yeah. So on the box, I don't think it's on camera, but on the box step over workout, as I was coming down, my ankle just rolled under. So 220 pounds plus 270-pound dumbbells came down this ankle, and my ATFL completely ruptured, grade 3 tear, and my ankle rolled so hard that the most painful part was the bruising of my foot against the underside of my medial ankle bone. Like the foot rolled so hard that the bones bruised, and that was the most painful part, and that lasted the longest too. But my physio, who's a friend of mine, he lied to me and told me it was a grade 2 tear that was still attached, and you'll be all right, and just like do this rehab and don't run on it for a couple of weeks, and we'll be sweet by the games. And then it was fine. And then after the games, he told me, he's like, yeah, no, it was completely ruptured. If you'd rolled your ankle again, you'd be needing like surgery. So, but he's like, I don't want you to think about that because then you probably would have. So that was, and there's nothing you could do anyway, right? He's like, you couldn't get surgery on it. So I just told you it was a grade 2 for your own head, but the rehab is exactly the same, whether it was 2 or 3. So no ethical issue as far as like, malpractice, but it was just try and keep me positive. Like, oh yeah, no, it's still a little bit attached. You're okay. So yeah, it was completely ruptured.
Do you talk
How did
to,
you do at the games in 2018?
I think like most rookies, I got completely flattened. It was an awesome experience, and I loved it. And I remember after I won the total, I was sitting there thinking like, guys like Noah Olsen had been to like at the time in 18, I think it was his 5th trip maybe. I like, this guy's been to the games 5 times. He's a perennial top 10 athlete, like, and he's never won an event, and I have. So I was super like humbled and grateful for that, like to have made a mark. But then I pretty much languished in that bottom heat, and I had a couple of good finishes and like a couple of heat win to feel awesome about the experience. But yeah, it was very much like I think most rookies, with a few notable exceptions, it's the shock of the level of competition, and also just the unsuredness, right? Like I remember vividly the chaos workout was like, it was such a cool idea, and like I wish now I'd enjoyed it more at the time, of like how cool it was that we were doing an event where like, the ultimate kind of CrossFit theory of a workout of like, hey, do this until I say stop, and then I'll tell you what to do when we get there. And I just went out really conservative because I was just so scared. Like, oh, what if this is a 20-minute workout? What if I burn out? Like, I've got to pace this out. Just trying not to hurt, right? Just being a bit soft. And I wish I'd kind of done what Khan did, which was he just went hard out. He was like leading the pack for like halfway, and he fell back a bit. Like he got pipped by a few people, but still finished like pretty decent. I think he was top 15. And so like that was better than I came like 4th last in that workout because I just waited too long to make the move. And so a bit of that at your first games, right? It's a bit unsure of like, you don't want to try to pace every workout almost too much, of like, you don't want to hurt too much. You want to, finish strong. But really, I wish I'd gone in there with a bit more confidence and just attacked the workouts and like just had to go and see what I was capable of.
Sevan, you know who was also in the last heat a lot at that games?
Who?
Josh Bridges.
Oh, 2018 was the first year that I was told I couldn't do the behind the scenes anymore. And ironically, that was the beginning of the end for CrossFit. Just a correlation.
Yeah.
That hurts, Brian. That hurts. My buddy. Were you in heats with Josh?
Yeah. So I had a good time with Josh, and he's a good dude. And he was pretty broken that year. I remember he was talking about it actually. Every time someone would ask him like, "Hey man, you're alright?" Like he's limping from the warm up area, and he would tell us about it's the knee and this and that. And like he obviously got all the surgeries after that games, where he said he's like, I'm just gonna get through this games and then go get these surgeries, get all this stuff cleaned up, and get back to it. So it made me feel better, even though I know he was like had like probably 50% capacity. It was like, oh yeah, I'm in the same heat as Josh Bridges. Like, there's not total losers down here. Like we're all get to rub shoulders with Josh at least. And I beat him in that snatch bar muscle up workout. So that was like a cool moment of like, we're doing okay here. So it made me feel better. So grateful to Josh for giving the bottom heat some hope and making us feel like we were still athletes.
I think the story goes he was deployed. This is early on in his career, and he was training overseas, and I think they wrestled a lot, and the guys wrestled a lot in his deployment, and he was wrestling a guy, and something happened to his knee. And to this day, I don't think it's ever fully recovered. I think he's had a bunch of surgeries, but whenever I talk to him, I'll say something to him, or I think I was just on the phone with him the other day too. I was on a 3-way call with him and Dave, and he said that basically he's avoiding super heavy stuff because his knee just can't take it anymore. And I think he's really cut back on his like ruck runs. I think that's something that a lot of the SEALs, like, that's sort of their bread and butter for conditioning. And I think I don't want to misspeak, but I think he's cut back on those too, running with really heavy stuff. Yeah, that knee is definitely screwed up. He should take up golf or something.
The golf is, well, if you do real golf, so in a real golf tournament, you can't use a buggy. You have to walk. So you got to walk 18 holes. It's pretty rough. That's why all the golfers these days look like freaking baseball players. When they used to be like fat white guys smoking cigars, now they're all like elite athletes, because you can't compete unless you're in the best shape of your life, pretty much. But
really, a caddy doesn't carry your clubs for you in golf.
The caddy does. Caddy carry the clubs, but you can't like use a golf cart. You can't like you have to walk the entire green, all that kind of stuff. So it's you got to be decently athletic, because you're also trying to hit these like 400 yard drives every like 20 minutes. So yeah, it might not be the best sport for someone with a bad knee, honestly.
You made a post that on Sunday, driving to the event, that you had a breakdown. I think those were your words. That really piqued my curiosity. Tell me about that. And what place were you in Sunday morning?
Sunday morning, I can't remember if I was in second or third, but I was at least in third. I knew I was in the top three, and which is I think a tough spot to be in. Well, it depends on your confidence level, I suppose, but I think most people would agree that it's tough to be in the spot with a day left versus like fighting for the spot. At least you have like a clear goal, and if you shoot for the stars kind of thing and you miss, at least you had a go. But if you're the one holding the ball and you drop it, it's a much worse feeling. So the pressure is a bit higher, and so it was just it was a pretty like emotional day, I guess. Like it wasn't even super. It sounds really deep, but it was actually pretty just basic of like, I was pretty stressed out. Like, as I said, it was a big shock coming back from team to individual of like, it's all self-imposed stuff, right? Like ego stuff. Like, oh, if I don't qualify, like in my mind, I'm supposed to be a good athlete. If I don't qualify, then I'm not a good athlete. What does it say about me? And, all like, your basic ego stuff. And I was just getting a bit like, man, do I even like want this? Like, oh, what if I do qualify? I'm going to start training for the CrossFit Games. Like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. And the breakdown kind of came from just like, it was like the fourth day in a row because, Thursday, I worked Thursday morning and then we had check-in all night and stuff. So it was like the fourth day in a row that Laurie has like basically spent all day at home with these three kids, these three crazy kids. One of them is a newborn that like can't be put down or she cries. And like while I'm off like, competing, and then all the months before that when it's like I'm just off in the shed, basically like mucking around training, right? Like if I'm not going to qualify and like actually treat this professionally, then all those last few months has really just been me mucking around, like having a good time and pretending to be an athlete while she's been doing all the hard work. So it was like I wanted this at one point, and maybe like this weekend's kind of worn me down a bit. But if I don't like fulfill my potential or like at least have a crack, like even if I don't qualify, I have to treat this seriously, or it is not worth like not honoring Laurie's time and my kids' time when I told them I couldn't play because I have to go train, all that stuff. So it's like it just really has to be a conversion of the effort, and that kind of pulled me out of it a little bit of like, all right, like I owe this to more than just myself, and yeah, it was pretty simple as that. It was like I was just having a moment of like, yeah, like everyone does in comp, like this sucks. Like, why do we sign up for this? I hate this. And then it was like, yeah, but it's not about how you feel. I mean, if it was easy to do that, there'd be a lot more athletes, honestly. Like, people think the hard part is the training and all that stuff, but the hard part's actually walking through all the self-doubt and also just not going to water at the moment when it counts.
Were you in the car by yourself? Did you talk this out with someone, or did you talk it out with yourself?
I was just in the car by myself, just listening to some tunes. Listen to some country tunes. Some of those songs that get emotional, It was actually, ironically, the thought came to me. I was listening to, I can't remember who sings it, but it's called "Something to Be Proud of," and it's a pretty emotional song. It's like these lyrics about this guy getting his dad telling him his life story, and like, life is as simple. You can be as proud of your life as simple as putting food on the table for your family and stuff. And it's like just really like classic, like American country values, and which is pretty universal, right? And it just got me thinking about family, and I was thinking about the kids and how like they didn't want me to leave that Sunday. They didn't want me to go, and Jack was trying to ask if he could come with me, and it just got me thinking about all that stuff. And then it was a bit of a mini breakdown of like, I don't want to do this. I should just go home right now, like withdraw and just go home and hang out with the family. But that's when I started thinking like, no, if you just quit now like an idiot, then you just wasted their last year or two anyway. So it's time to like pony up and let's go.
Did the
and how many? Sorry, go ahead,
Did
Brian.
the last part, the clean and jerk was on Saturday night, right?
That's right.
Did the way that event ended weigh into your feelings at any point on Sunday morning? Because I'm guessing you were pretty bummed about that last bar.
Why? What happened?
Well,
I'll give you the run through. So,
Okay.
it's funny. There's two parts to it, right? Because we knew, and a lot of the athletes, a lot of the spectators, I think, knew as well. There was a tie break on the last bar with how quickly you cleaned it. Like the person who hits it the fastest gets the win. But I also think quite a few people didn't realize that. And so from their perspective, 3, 2, 1, rotate. I basically ran to this bar, picked it up, hit a decent clean, and then just completely thrown the jerk. Like really, really obvious miss. Like just kind of, what is this idiot doing? Like, why did he rush that so much and miss it? Like, what a loser. And then I reattempted it, but had nothing left and failed it pretty miserably. And it was like, people were just like, what is this guy doing? Like, what did I just watch? But what it was is it was a bit of a gamble with like the three boys had hit it already. Like I know them all personally, and they're all better at jerking than me. So I figured if I take my time, I'll probably be the slowest anyway. So I'll just try and send it and just try and gamble on a win. So I missed the bar, but because I was the fastest person to hit the bar before it, it was the same placing, right? Like if I was the last person to hit the final clean jerk, or the first person to hit the one before it, it still gave me fourth place. So it was like nothing really lost. And I think it was a good moment for me, honestly, because while it would have been cool to get an event win on the event that everyone thought I should win, it was a good kind of humbling of like, look, you know what, like that didn't go to plan, and I look like an idiot in front of everyone missing this bar by rushing it. But don't worry about that so much. Like, get out of your head. Like, you're not here. Like, the fans are awesome. Don't get me wrong. Not to sound ungrateful. Like, I really love the support from people I know and people I don't know alike. But at the same time, you're not there. You're not working out just to make fans happy and get a clap and look cool. Like, we're here to do a job and get points and qualify for the next stage. So it kind of got me out of my head a little bit of like, yeah, look, stop worrying if you fail. Like, if you fail, you fail, but you got to give it a try. And so, yeah, it's easier to say I wish I'd gone back and hit the bar, but in a weird way, like I was saying to someone the other day, I was like, if I could do my time again, I'd do the exact same thing. I would just try and hit it, like actually like pull myself together and try and hit it, because you can't be scared of failure. You gotta risk it sometimes.
I was surprised that you decided to take your shirt off for that lift.
Why is that slippery? Does it make the bar slippery? Why do you say that, Brian?
Just
yeah.
he's
A lot
kept
of
it on
people
for every
find
other
it.
bar.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people
Sorry, go ahead,
put their
Royce.
shirt back on for like a heavy lift because it stops the bar from slipping. But I personally never had that problem, at least not with the weights I can hit. Like my clean and jerk is probably not as heavy as it should be for what I can front squat and strict press. So if I had better technique, if I was like a pure weightlifter in my weight class, you should be able to clean and jerk like 190, 200, like 440 pounds kind of thing. Like a lot of the guys in my weight class here in this country, I know a few of them, they can hit like 430. So at that weight, maybe yes, I probably need the shirt on. But like for the weights I lift, I've never had a slip. So shirt on, shirt off doesn't matter. But I had my belt under my shirt, so I was like going to ditch the shirt so I could like access my belt easier and just, I didn't want to waste any time. I was all about this perfect transition to the bar and trying to win this tie break. But, the critical part about that is you have to lift the bar. So that didn't go well.
And Brian, he's twice as thick as the rest of the guys. He's got like a wider platform to rest on, and he's got some chest hair that the nerdling can hold on to. He's good.
Well, I gotta say,
Astute observation, Brian. But
as little as I invest emotion when I make the rankings, when I'm sitting there watching, and I'm obviously pulling for him because I'm like, man, Royce, first of all, I think he's a really good guy, although I haven't met him before. I obviously want, the guys I picked to do well. I was like, man, I wonder if he kept his shirt on, if he would have hit that lift. It's like maybe a silly thought, but that's what I was thinking.
Well, I think the bar felt good for me. Was the moment I put my hands on it and pulled it off the ground, I realized that I'd grabbed the bar like with both my hands to the left, like too far off center, and I kind of tried to adjust it on the jerk a little bit, and then it went up nice, but it was like I felt like the entire 335 pounds was on my left arm. And I immediately just crumbled and like dropped it. And I was like, damn, if I was just in the center, I think I could have pulled off like a fast clean and jerk. So it wasn't even the shirt. It was just the fact that when I ran over there, I just didn't grab it in the right spot, which is what happens when you rush. So it was, like I said, one of those calculated risks that this time didn't pay off.
it's interesting. On one hand, you made a rookie mistake by pulling the bar, but you made a vet wrong wrong hand placement, but you made a veteran advancement by not letting it get into your head. And it can give you confidence now going into the games knowing, hey, I can screw up an event and still win this shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What do you think his competitors think about him, Brian, after seeing his performance?
Like the other people who will be at the games?
Yeah, like what do you think the is he on their radar? Does the winner of the Tory and Pro get on people's radar? Is the competition stiff enough in Australia where he's like, oh shit, we got a fucking another guy who's going to try to break the top 10 this year?
I'm pretty curious about that, actually. I mean, obviously James Newberry did make the top 10 in 2019, and there's a lot of people who think Jay Crouch is very good and has a lot of potential. So to hang with him and end up beating him by the end of the weekend is great. That thing that I said at the start, there's like 6 to 8 guys in Australia that I feel like in any given weekend could be right up there. And I think that it's such a tight community all there that they all kind of know that and know each other too. But we haven't seen, I mean, just being honest, outside of James doing that, we really haven't seen the guys from Australia in the top 10. So I'm pretty curious to see if that can happen. If I was a competitor, the thing that scares me about Royce is that he's that big. Obviously, he's that strong. But he also is amazing at gymnastics. Like the 3 workouts that had the most gymnastics on the weekend were all top 3 finishes, I think. And I've actually been, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how are you so good at ring muscle-ups, chest-to-bar pull-ups, and hanging with these small guys? Because a lot of big guys struggle with that.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. All the pulling gymnastics has always been good, like fine for me, like toes to bar, bar muscle-ups, chest to bars are all some of my better movements. The pressing gymnastics is where the size, I definitely feel like how heavy I am, and I got a pretty long reach. Like I'd call myself naturally a better squatter than I am a deadlifter, for example. But my deadlift is actually quite high because I got pretty long arms, like Austin Malleolo style. You have to pull the bar as far, right? So it kind of works for me great with those kinds of mechanics. But the long arms and the heavy weight make like handstand push-ups like very, very difficult. They're probably I don't know if it's the worst in the field, but they're probably up there. Bukowski, for example, has better handstands than me. We're roughly the same size, but I think just limb length wise, he's got a better ratio of arm to body. Plus, he's got better endurance than me, I think, just from his sporting background and the kind of athlete he is.
But he won't hang with you on the upper body pulling stuff. Maybe legless rope climbs, but chest to bar pull ups, I think you have an advantage. Bar muscles, ring muscle ups.
I hope so. Yeah, I would think so. I would certainly bet on myself, depending on the workout, in that regard against Brent, and vice versa in other workouts, he has the advantage. So yeah, I think it's just the pulling gymnastics do very well. The pressing gymnastics still need work, but like anything, it's at the end of the day, I'm just probably never going to beat a Jay Crouch on a handstand, depending on how many handstands there are on a handstand workout. But just like Jay is probably never going to out clean and jerk me. And the time it would take Jay to beat me on the time and effort it would take him to train to beat me on the clean and jerk would cost him way too much elsewhere. And the time it would take me to get that good at handstands would cost me elsewhere. But you just got to make sure that the things you suck at aren't so bad that you can't come back from it, right? Like, the people don't want to admit this, and I guess to certain athletes it's not true, but of course there is luck in the programming. Like you'd be naive to think there isn't, and certain athletes like your Tiers and your Matts seem to be immune from that because there's really nothing they can't do, at least very well, if not win. But I think for most of the athletes in the middle, programming plays a bit of luck. And I looked at that one workout from the Mid-Atlantic Challenge that was 10 rounds of 1 legless rope climb, 4 strict handstand push-ups, 6 heavy dumbbell snatch, 100 pounds. Like that's my dream workout. If there has to be a handstand push-up workout, that's me, because most of the people at the games could do 4 unbroken for 10 rounds. Like that's not hard. The legless rope climb, I think, is much more of a factor than the 4 handstands, which is good for me. And the dumbbell is heavy as crap. So that's like, no one thinks that in the first 2 rounds until you're like 6 rounds in, that dumbbell is very heavy. So that's the perfect workout for me for a handstand workout, right? That's the handstand push-ups like done for the weekend. And it was a workout that I could probably top 5. So it's like, there's a bit of luck in that, right? Versus if the programming was Mary, like from the games, I would have probably been right there back with Brent in the back of the heat, like just dying slowly, being like, crap, I wish I was smaller, because what can you do, right? Like it's too late. It's too late. You're there and you weigh 220 pounds.
Well, you're the second big guy who's told us that handstand push-up workout is favorable. Jason Hopper said the same thing. He's like, if there were big sets of strict handstand push-ups, that would have been different, but 4 I could do. And Sevan, I think we got to ask him, since we asked what competitors might think about him. What'd you think about Hopper? Have you watched any of his stuff?
I have to admit that I haven't watched virtually any of the Mac, but whenever I see, I mean, I guess it's a bit of a cognitive bias just from CrossFit's origin. I think this is true of most of the Aussies, and back to your question, Sevan, about what the competitors think about the Aussies. I think there is a natural tendency to look at the US events and the US field and just assume it's stronger and deeper, because historically it has been. And so I think, unfortunately, there wouldn't be a lot of the Americans, I think, that look at our region and see many threats, apart from like your standouts like Tia and James, obviously are flying the flag pretty high. But I doubt that many guys that don't know me personally looked at the pro and thought, okay, this guy's gonna be a threat. I think it's just, that's the event in Australia, there's the event in South America, there's the event in Africa. Like, it's not on the radar. And it's kind of similar for me. Like, I don't know Jason Hopper into watching the events, but I think like when someone wins an event in America, you've got to assume this person is probably pretty legit, because there's just more people, more talent. It just runs deeper. So I think it's a pretty legit claim to be the winner of the MAC. It was a super stacked field. So I don't know Jason. I didn't watch any of his events, but I think, like as Castro put it best, he's for real.
Isn't it interesting that the Tia's biggest threat, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, also comes out of Australia? The first and second best CrossFitting women in the world are sitting on that giant island that's barely populated.
Yeah, that is really cool. Honestly, that's a cool.
What do you call her? Kara Saunders or Cara Saunders, or what's her name now? Cara.
I call her Cara.
I like Cara. That's what I always call her too.
Yeah.
I think we have her on the podcast coming up here in a couple of weeks, and she won the Torian Pro also, right?
Right, by a lot more than I did.
Yeah, she just smashed.
By the way,
how many
Sevan,
points
Royce
did you
won by 1 point, so it's kind of a joke on both.
Awesome. How many points did you have? Do you remember?
It was 549.
Oh. Wow, so there's a lot of. It wasn't like 6-5. It was like wow.
7 events. It was 7 events.
That's incredible. Do you know who took second place?
Jay.
Okay. And did you guys did you guys leave on good terms? Is it all fun and games? Yeah.
So I knew Jay a bit. I met him a few times and we'd interacted, but we got a lot closer over the weekend. We had a lot more chats, and he's a really good bloke. And it's funny because his kind of brand or his reputation is like he's this wonder kid, right? He's this young kid. He started when he was like 15 under Rob Forte, and he's been on the team with Rob a couple of times, and now he's obviously solid. Like he didn't have a finish worse than 10th, so he had a much better consistent record than I did over the weekend. I just hit a few more home runs than him, but so he's like the real deal. But for someone who is considered this like young gun, he's actually pretty he's very together. He's very mature. He's got he's wise, I guess is the word to put it. Which I think has a lot of Rob's influence probably as well. But also I think he's just a kid with his head screwed on. And so I really like Jay, and we get along quite well.
You have this contraption at your gym. It's I don't know what you call it. Brian probably knows what it's called. It's a replica of the handstand walk cushion. But yours is made of wood. What's that thing called, Brian?
It's just the obstacle course. It's probably got stairs on one side, ramp on the other.
The obstacle, yeah.
Yes. Stairs on one side. But I'm looking I'm going through Instagram, and the first time I see it, I'm like, wow, that thing looks like it's made of wood. And then I see it in another photo, and I zoom in. I'm like, man, this looks like a liability. Where did that come from? Did you make it? And have there been any injuries on that?
So back in 2018, when they released,
it's made of plywood.
Yeah, it's just made of ply with some actual I can't remember what they're called, like 2x4s, like proper wood underneath it, framing it.
Yeah, there's probably
And
20 sharp corners on that thing.
so we made, well, one of the boys, CJ, one of our training partners, he just made one, like went to Bunnings, bought some wood and just made it in 2018 when they released at regionals that workout. Because the AAI ones are they're about 1,500 US, and then to ship them out to Australia, it's like another like 700 US or something crazy. It's just too expensive. So the plywood cost, I think CJ got it all for like 150 bucks. Put it together himself. It's a bit bodgy. We still have it here at the gym. It's a bit of like a memorabilia. We still use it. And then I know a carpenter here in Australia, and he makes like pegboards and ply boxes and stuff for the gyms. And I sent him all the measurements from the CrossFit website, and I said, hey, can you make this? And he goes, yeah, sure. And he's put like a pretty professional spin on it. Like he's sanded like and rounded all the corners. It's like nice and polished. He's put like logos on it. He's installed some wheels. So like it's Velcro together, when you pull it apart, you can like wheel it around the gym. So like even Laurie can like move it at home. Like you don't have to be strong to lift it or anything. It's like quite easy to maneuver. And I've personally never had a fall on it. One of the boys came over to my house to train. He fell on it, but like it was, I mean, you got a bruise. Like it's hard wood, obviously, but no one's ever been like mashed up by it. I think, if you just do the proper progression in your handstand walk and try a few plates first or little things like that, then you should be fine, because you're attempting, like weightlifting, right? You're attempting a weight you are theoretically prepared for. So you don't just, it's not like someone just punches you in the face with a handstand ramp. If you fail, you're failing kind of gracefully because you're at least in the realm of attempting it. So as long as you're not just like some random who walks into a gym and goes, oh, let's give this a try next minute. So yeah, it could be a liability, and it's definitely not as safe as the foam ones. But like me personally, I don't attempt, even in a workout, I don't attempt a handstand walk if I'm not confident I can make it, because it's training. I wouldn't risk an injury anyway. And I think Mike, as in the owner of CrossFitorium, was toying with the idea of getting a bunch of them made for the pro. But in that situation, in a comp setting, I think he couldn't justify the risk to athletes of falling down on a piece of wood, because it's a competition environment where people are going to take risks and push themselves and throw safety out the window. So for the safety of athletes, he was like, no, we'll scrap that idea. But in training, I think they're great, especially if you have the capacity to train on it, you know what you're doing. So I see tons of them around on Instagram now, like that guy that I know. He's made a few more for a few other gyms, and even back in 2018, like people were like making up their own ones out of wood, like all over the place. So the wooden ramps do exist out there.
You should throw a couple hundred mouse traps around the outside of it just to give you extra incentive to not crash. Hey, if you fall now you're really screwed.
Exactly.
Were you saying earlier when we first started talking that a couple weeks prior to the games that all of the Mayhem athletes who qualified for the games will fly out to Tennessee ahead of time?
Yeah, I assume so. I assume that all of them that can make it will be coming.
And tell me about that. Does he do that every year? Is that part of the programming? I mean, that sounds really cool. That sounds really enticing, and like, wow, what a great opportunity.
It absolutely is. And so 2018, I remember after the regionals, I messaged Rich on Instagram and said, hey, I follow your program and I just qualified for the CrossFit Games. And Rich got back to me like the next day. Well, I woke up to the message because obviously the time difference of him being like, hey, man, this is awesome. Like, come on out to Tennessee. Like, we'll train before the games, like, blah, blah, blah. And at the time, I think I was technically the first satellite Mayhem athlete to make the games. All the other Mayhem athletes were like at CrossFit Mayhem. And in the years since then, it's obviously exploded, and there's heaps more athletes, a lot of them in the States, on Mayhem Athlete. And it was a bad year it was a painful year to be locked down last year, because on Instagram, all I'm seeing is they actually done a bunch of camps over the last couple of years. They always have to train with Rich, obviously, and Rich always gets any athletes to come and he'll make us do like demos and stuff and just add to the experience. Like, so he brings in all the guys. And so heaps of Train with Riches had a bunch of different athletes, and then they had the US Warrior Army Fitness team out there, and then they've had a couple of training camps since then. I saw like Medeiros was there after the games, and so they've been, something that Riches and the Mayhem crew have been doing a lot more as like a product of their program and wanting to like grow that side of it. So this is the first games camp that I'll be going to, since we didn't have a games last year for teams. So I think it's something that will be a regular thing, and definitely a huge value add. If you're a Mayhem athlete, like the chance to go out there and train with Rich and the crew, it's pretty phenomenal.
Where will you stay?
Hopefully at Rich's house. I haven't actually asked him yet, but it's a bit more complicated because I have to do there has to be a 7-day. I have to do a 7-day quarantine when I get to the States. But
according to who? That's a law. That's a law that we have in the United States.
It's probably federal. I think it's probably like it's like the Department of Homeland's policy for newcomers. But the irony is, and I was talking to one of the boys here in the gym who's been in the States recently. This is how bureaucratic it is. I have to quarantine for 7 days, but anyone else in the household doesn't. So even though if I stay at the same house, like with Rich, for example, he can still leave. He's not quarantined. So what does that achieve? I don't know. Nothing. But it's the rule. Whereas that's why here in Australia, you have to go to a hotel room and you can't leave the room, because originally we had the 2-week quarantines in our home, but people were like, yep, I'll quarantine, and then day 2 they're at like a music festival. So
yeah, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. I would do minute 2.
Yeah. So people were going like a party on the way home from the airport. I'm like, I wanted to go home and have a shower. These people have COVID and they're out like, hitting up like, music festivals and stuff. But the quarantine. But the fact is that I have to do a 7-day quarantine. So I'm hoping that I can do that at Richard's house. I haven't asked him yet, but I'm hoping I can do it at his house where I can train in the barn versus in some like Holiday Inn where I be doing burpees next to my bed for a week, which would be kind of lame. So fingers crossed. I mean, it just comes down, I guess, honestly, space in the house. Like if Richard's got a few guys staying there already, I'll have to figure it out. I can maybe stay with Chase. Chase is in Knoxville, so about an hour and a half away, but Chase has got a pretty sweet home gym, and I can hang out with him and just head over to Cookville when he does. So I guess there's a few options.
They don't have anything as nice as a Holiday Inn in Cookville, by the way.
No,
so you better lower your standards a little bit.
Yeah, the first year we went over there in 2018, we were staying at like some, like I don't know what it was called. It's like just a dodgy motel like from a movie. And
motel.
And Rich was asking us like, like where are you staying? And I told him, and he was like, oh yeah, all right. And so like the next day he actually organized for us to go, because his house was full. He organized us to go stay with his mum. So his mum took us in because Janice was like, you're not staying there, guys. That's like so dodgy. It's the worst part of Cookville. You guys got a kid with you. Come and stay with me. So I mean, we knew nothing. We just like rocking up like, oh yeah, it's awesome. Tennessee's amazing.
When the first time I went out and visited Rich, I don't remember what year it was, but I stayed in this hotel. I think it was like a Hampton Inn or something, and I was really into insects at the time, and they had and they got great insects in Cookville, and I could just leave my hotel room and just go out to the parking lot where they had those big old floodlights that look like they're from a crime scene, and there'd be just millions of bugs. I'm like, wow, what a great hotel. They provide, 10,000 varieties of beetles and spiders and shit. And
some in your bed too. Some bugs in the bed too.
You don't have any tattoos?
I got one on my left bicep.
And you used to have piercings.
Yeah.
Tell me about you had a nose ring and you had the stuff in your ear. What was wrong with you? Were you a drug addict and then you got off drugs and that was your way of acting out, or like why does someone do that? It looked like you were on your way to making those big old ears because you had like little plugs in there.
Yeah. It was far more simple, which was just I was young and thought it looked cool. I never had the nose. I had an eyebrow piercing.
Oh, eyebrow, right.
And I took that out. I kind of outgrew that even before I grew up because it was just annoying. And it would catch on a towel or whatever. So I took that out even before I didn't think it looked cool anymore. And then the ears, I grew up and I liked punk music and I kind of liked the punk look a little bit, but I wouldn't, not full punk, but like just enough to get like a little stretcher. But the funny thing is like my earlobes are like stuck to my head. Like I don't have proper earlobes. So doing that little stretch actually gave me an earlobe. And then when I took them out, the hole like closes down, but not entirely. So now I have like earlobes. So it worked out.
So it was like some healthy body. It was functional body modification. Instead of getting plastic surgery, you just performed
Oh,
your own.
yeah, really, really cheap plastic surgery. Nah, it was
When you,
it was just because I thought it was cool. I was just young, and that's what I was into.
when you look back at those pictures, do you think you look better now without them or with them?
I think I look so different with them in that it's hard to relate. But I think I look better now at this stage of life. Put it that way. Like I think as a dad of three kids, it's definitely a better look to not have an eyebrow piercing and some holes in your ears.
Yeah, maybe I'm just getting old. I don't think I was ever into that. But almost a James Bond look to you. You have a good square jaw. You look kind of ageless. And when I saw that, I'm like, wow. I'm so, like, because when I see that stuff, but then I didn't see the tattoos. I'm like, if he was a recovering drug addict, he'd probably be covered in tattoos also.
Yeah, yeah. That's a pretty accurate stereotype most of the time. I think.
Yeah, stereotypes are great.
I mean, stereotypes start somewhere, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What's the tattoo on your bicep?
It's the Christian fish, the Jesus fish.
And tell me, what is Jeremiah 29:11? I wish I was. Maybe I'll be a Christian when I grow up. The best part about being a Christian is that you get to say cool numbers like that. Like guys in the military
Yeah.
get to do that. Bravo, Charlie. And then
Yeah.
Christian guys get to be like 29:11. That's my jam. So tell me, what is Jeremiah 29:11?
I actually have it. I can get it. I can get you word for word, so I don't screw it up. I have it on my desktop here. It's from the chapter of the Bible, Jeremiah, the verse 29, line 11, which is, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future."
And why does that Well, how old were you when you came across that?
It was pretty recent. It's probably like 3 or 4 years ago.
And why does that resonate with you?
It's one of the more common Bible quotes. It's like like the John, for he loved the world so much that he died for it. There's the couple of Corinthians ones that people always use in their wedding vows about the strongest of these is love. It's one of the ones that it's pretty well known, and for good reason. There's a context every verse. Like there's something happening in that verse that Jeremiah is trying to tell the people about. But as just a general platitude, it's a pretty good, in my feeling, it's a pretty good summary of the entire New Testament, which is, essentially the ethos is that what we go through in life, like this life on earth, is kind of an enormous consequence of all the decisions that we make as free thinking beings. And so, yes, good things happen, but also pretty bad stuff happens too. And Christianity never said it would be saved from the bad things in life. It's just a promise that this is a temporary thing, and then there's a much greater plan for us afterwards, i.e. the afterlife. So one of the phrases, one of the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament was about stop loving the world so much. Like, don't worry if you get a good shake at this life, because this is just one part of it, and there's so much more good to come that all the bad will never compare. And so that's kind of that can apply to many levels, as far as just a nice little prayer to say before you have to go do something you're nervous about, that hey, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to, up to existentialism of like, what's it all about? Hey, don't worry, there's a plan, there's a future. Like, in essence, it's just that verse is just saying God doesn't ever do anything to you that will harm you. And people like to throw out the phrase, or like, oh, it's God testing you or whatever. Like, there's no evidence in the Bible that God makes bad things happen to you to see how you react. It's the fact that bad stuff happens because that's the nature of this world. And if God was to stop everything bad from happening, well, then we wouldn't have any free will, would we? Like, you can't take away the bad without taking away what causes most of the bad. So it's saying that life is what it is, but there is a plan, there is hope, there is a future, and that's kind of the entire promise of the New Testament.
Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what Roy said? You are free thinking. You can free think. I honestly believe that more than half the planet doesn't even know what thinking is.
I think there's a huge,
I remember when I learned how to think. I wasn't until my 20s, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is thinking."
yeah.
I was just a fly. I just reacted to shit.
Yeah, I think there's a huge following, or like whether people even like know how to verbalize it. There's a great attraction to the idea of determinism, like that you're just the passenger on the ride, and even the things you think you're choosing are only because of all the things that have happened, and blah blah blah. And there is some comfort in that, right? And it's a lot of it leads to a victim mentality of like, it's not my fault, so therefore I can't be blamed. But anyone great in history, as far as I know, call me out of my ignorance, but every great person in history, depends how you define great, believed in free thinking, right? That we are free beings, that they get to decide our fate and can turn anything around if we want to, and that is literally what is stated in the Bible, and that's what I believe, that God made us as free thinking individuals. Free will is the most sacred gift He gave us, and so while there is a comfort in determinism, I think free will is harder to accept, but it's where you need to go if you want to make your life better in any way. Which is easy to say from someone who's not been through a lot of hardship. Like, I know that's the problem, right? It's the thoughts and prayers argument. Like, no one who's going through bad times wants to hear that oh, my thoughts and prayers are with you, because that doesn't feel good when you're in the moment. But there's only really one way out of a bad situation, which is taking responsibility, taking free will. Like, you can't just wait to be saved by someone. It might happen, but that's a very vulnerable place to be in, right? You should believe in free will.
In defense of what you're saying, if you don't practice it in good times, it won't be there for you in bad times. By that I mean, if you wait until shit hits the fan and your wife dies in a car accident to start meditating, you started too long. You should practice in good times and cultivate the skill of mindfulness, so that when the shit does hit the fan, you have that tool. It's like CrossFit. You train in the garage, so when you go to the games and they do put in handstand push-ups, you're prepared. So,
yeah. It's that great saying,
ahead,
right? There's no atheist in the foxhole. Like, when faced with your end, everyone wants there to be something more. But when the good times are rolling, no one cares or thinks about that stuff, right? But that's when you should care and think about it the most.
Right. Do you think you would ever change from something else? Do you think you would ever switch? Do you ever see people switch?
You do see people switch, but I can't see myself there. I like it. Easy to say, I guess. Like,
that's your jam, 2911.
Yeah. I think that to me that evokes the most. Like, it then links me and reminds me and brings me back to the rest of all other scriptures and the rest of the Bible that as a Christian you're supposed to study and take in. But that's kind of like my hook. That like really gives me that grand like feeling of what it's all about, and then you can go deep from there based on what I need, what I want to get me through whatever situation.
Is everyone at Rich's Gym a Christian?
I'm not sure.
Are there any heathens there?
I think it's mostly. I can't think of anyone who isn't. They're a pretty good group. Like, they're all on the same page, I think.
Yeah, I can't think of any either.
Royce, have you started doing any of the mayhem mindset stuff?
I haven't, no.
That's he's got a guy over there, Sevan, named I think Jim Hensel, that he's been working with on the mindset stuff, and I know a lot of people in that group have more slowly started to build some of that into their life, and I don't know how it coincides with the training necessarily, but I was just wondering if you knew anything about it.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work, probably, especially for athletes who are so used to getting all of their wins and all of their progress from moving. And I'm guessing, I don't know what the practice is that Jim Hensel teaches, but I bet you that there's a lot of stillness in it. I bet you there's a lot of not moving in it.
I would say it's a pretty safe assumption, yeah.
my wife has taken these courses. They're called Vipassana courses. They're non-denominational retreats. You go away for 10 days. They have longer courses, 30 days after you accomplish the first 10 days. They don't accept any money from anyone. You don't pay for it. You just sign up and go. And then they send you home with an envelope, and you can send money when you get home. And that's to keep them clean and pure. And it's basically no eye contact and no talking for 10 days with other people. And the experiences she has are profound. And when she returns from them, she's noticeably different. And meditation basically is I don't think a lot of people know what it is, but it's basically cultivating awareness, and it is the CrossFit of mental development. It is fucking hard. And it terrifies people if you say, oh, you're going to go away for 10 days and you're not going to get to make eye contact or talk with someone for 10 days. I mean, there's other people there, but you're not supposed to make eye contact with anyone or talk to someone. And it's a lot of sitting and just watching, watching yourself, cultivating mindfulness. And it's cool that it's non-denominational. It's anyone can go who wants to do that.
Yeah.
I'll sign you up.
Rough again.
Your wife would kill your wife would kill you if you did that. I was just thinking about how much time you must spend away from home for the games, and I don't want to harp on it because I know it probably weighs on you and your wife enough. But then the fact that you have to come back and do a quarantine, and she knows, oh, he's just right over there when he could be over here changing diapers, is just.
That 2 weeks will be the hardest for sure.
They should give you a pass. They should test you. You're 30 years old. I wonder if anyone 30 years old with your fitness, well, I already know the answer to this, has died in Australia. No.
I think.
How about in the world? No. There should be some sort of pass. And
I
it
agree.
doesn't. Who cares how rich you are?
Yeah.
Hey, this guy came in. His blood sugar levels are non-existent. He burns everything off, and he's 30 years old. Give him a pass. He gets to go home and quarantine at home. You're 100. I'm not going to say that. I may get in trouble. I was going to make a list of things if you are where you do have to stay in the hotel.
Yeah.
Royce, what's it like traveling what's it like traveling between Australia and New Zealand right now?
So we have a bubble between Australia and New Zealand, so it's like back to where it used to be, which is free travel. Like the Australian and New Zealand passports pretty much act like pseudo citizenship. Like a New Zealander can come to Australia and get a job and start working and pay tax and just basically live here as long as they want, as long as they can afford it. And that's how it used to always be, and that's how it is now again with this bubble. So it's like free travel. It was kind of sketchy when COVID started because there's a bunch of Kiwis here who didn't have citizenship because you didn't need it, except when they rolled out all the government assistance for COVID, helping all pay the business to pay their employees to stay in business, that kind of stuff. Kiwis weren't eligible, and it was well, hang on, we've been here for 10 years, we're not citizens because we didn't need to be, but we can't go home now, it's too late, the borders are all closed, it's going to cost us money, whatever. So that was sketch a month or two, and they quickly caught up and were oh, okay, all the New Zealanders and PRs, as long as you proved you'd been in the country for more than 3 months or something, you started to get eligible. So they fixed it pretty quick. But yeah, it's basically the free travel. It's kind of like Europe. It's you can just kind of bounce between the two. It's pretty crazy.
Do you know if you're going to compete again, or is this your last year? Do you know how many years you're going to do this?
I don't know how many years, but it's definitely not my last year. But I don't know if I'll go back individual again next year or team. But I definitely can't see myself not having to go again next year in some capacity. I just enjoy it too much, the day in stuff. Competition gets a bit not pleasant, but I just enjoy the day in, day out too much. And we got some two young guns at the gym. Will Carney, who's actually he's like the Jay Crouch of Tia and Shane. So he was started at Tia and Shane's gym up in Gladstone when he was 15. And he's Shane's protege, the whole weekend at the pro, because he competed and came top 10. Shane was on the, having a call every night, how you going? Talking through strategy. Tia tested all the workouts for us, and she's telling Will her times, which of course she beat all of us at everything all the time. And her times are not even for male athletes, are a good guide for the workout. It'll just make you depressed. That Amanda 21 did the muscle up and the snatch. Tia did the 21 muscle ups unbroken. Like there were some of the men couldn't do that, or if they did do it, they fell to pieces on the snatches. Tia went unbroken on the muscle ups and
I
finished
think
the
she
whole
was. I
workout
think she was the
103.
only girl to do 20 unbroken in 2018. Also to start the 30 muscle ups for time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was she. Christy Emerald got her by like a second or two. Like it was so tight.
But Tia was like 4
We did
reps
the
ahead
30
of
muscle
her
ups
at
for
the 20
time.
mark because she just
Yeah,
went that
we
huge
did
set.
30 reps for time in Rich's barn before the games, and me and James. So I went 20 unbroken, then 8, then 2, and James went 15, 10, 5, and then Tia went 20 and 10 and beat both of us. I was like, this is not good for my confidence right now. This is not doing my ego any favors, doing anything
Did
with
you
Tia.
did you say Justin Medeiros was out at Cookville? Did you say that?
Yeah, it's on there. It's on their YouTube. He went for one of like the camps they did like right at the start of this year. I don't know the exact date, but they did a bit of a camp, and yeah, Justin was there.
Is he following the Mayhem training?
I don't believe so. I think in the video, Rich says like, yeah, we got a bunch of our athletes plus just a few people who we just wanted to like give a good time to, and just like almost a bit of a reward for Justin. Like, hey, this new guy's doing well, and I think it's just Rich giving back. I think to like the next generation. Just invited him to come along and have a good time.
When you train with him, what do you see? Do you see? Is it like everyone says? I mean, people just say he's just all go. Did you get to witness that, or is he more of a coach role when you're there?
No, he's more of a mentor, I would say. Like he's kind of like seasoned advice, but like you're not going to see like he's not like kneeling next to you, like telling you to like get your elbows higher on the snatch or like fixing your back position or whatever. I think he like just trusts and respects the athletes enough that they know what they're doing, and he'll give advice if someone's like battling with something. But it's more of a mentor role, and it's a lead by example, which is what everyone says. But that's true. Like you kind of can't argue with like if he writes up a workout that's crazy, you can't really say, oh, that's silly when he goes and does it. So it's like, well, he's doing it, and obviously he's pretty damn fit, but so are we, right? So we should be able to do it too. And so you just kind of like just get on with it and don't make it, a bit of complaining. A good amount of complaining goes on, but it's also just his willingness to suffer. He always jokes about how he like tries to not hurt in a workout. Like I remember when they asked him one time when he won the lift off, the first ever rogue lift off, and they said, "Why'd you do singles on that barbell?" And he goes, "I just don't want to hurt that much." But it's his willingness to hurt. Like just when they do those repeat round workouts where it's like 10 sets, and he's just like the first set, you're like, I think this is a mistake. Like I don't know, I don't think we should do 8 of these. Like we've screwed up here. But he just like is willing to hurt himself for 8 more sets, whereas I'm like, maybe 4 is good. Maybe I should just stop at 4. This sucks. I don't want to do this. So yeah, he's just got that good mindset. He's just tough as nails.
How'd you like competing on a team with him?
Awesome. Like it was kind of a weird sense of calm, right? Because it's a bit of like that larger than life. Like when you're on the team with Rich, you just like we're going to win, right? Like it's just a known fact, and so that's how you approach the workout. Like we're going to win, and so you just push so much harder. It's the magic of the Mayhem Freedom. I think is that while Rich can't win the whole workout by himself because there's 4 people. He really does. You really do feel like we're definitely going to win because we got Rich, and so everyone brings their next level, like brings their A game because you just full-heartedly believe you're going to win.
God, I love that. So the people who've been on the team with him are really fortunate.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's an amazing experience to be. Like there are a few, like it's been said before, there are a few athletes in the history of different sports that change the game and are like. It's powerful to be around those people. And with Rich, it's not the physical ability. It is his mentality, right? It's the fact that he, the first person to win 4, like he just has the ability to kind of walk through the fire, I guess, and if he does doubt himself, he's good at pushing that doubt away. And so that is inspiring, like from that perspective, from the mental perspective. Yeah, it's great that he's like really fit and it's cool being on his team because he's gonna like smash the workout really fast. But it's more just like when you're around him, you don't doubt yourself as much either because, well, with Rich. Of course we're going to smash it. He's just so nonchalant. Like, he's just so down to earth and cool, calm, collected that you just can't help but be at ease.
So his confidence is contagious. It's
Literally.
not.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I can totally see that. He seems in total control, and so you're at calm, and then you obviously want to live up to his expectations. You're on his team, and it's an honor, and you don't want to be seen as the weak link on the team either.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a little bit of pressure, but outweighed by the confidence, I think.
Yeah, healthy pressure. I thought it was a two-man. It was a four-man team you were on with him.
At the pro, was the two-man team.
Okay. That's what in the picture. That's what I thought I saw.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get in trouble. I thought you were going to laugh at me for saying that, Brian. I thought I was going to get in trouble for saying that.
We're probably fist bumping the other boys.
This guy, first of all, he doesn't have a big Instagram account. He's got a lot of followers, but he doesn't got a lot of posts, so he's easy to do research on. And second of all, but the hard part about Royce is there's not a lot of history. Basically, every picture is him working out, or his wife, or his kids. But there's no like, you don't get to see him when he's like 16, like smoking a cigarette. You know what I mean? Like the earrings was the best I could dig out. Brian, is there anything burning you want to ask him before we let this guy go get a workout in?
No, I think I could, like I said, I could probably talk to him for another hour, but I think that we've done a good job. I've been impressed with your articulation, especially on the spiritual side of things. Yeah,
you're smart as shit. What did you study in school?
Ironically, I just did a year of what we call it university. I just did a year of university and decided that I was sick of studying like all through school just to go straight back to uni. So I dropped out and went and got my personal training certs, did that for a couple of years, and then found CrossFit, never looked back. So the answer is nothing.
Wow. What do your parents do?
They're both nurses.
Ah, so you come from some smart people. Do you have 2 more minutes? I want to ask Brian one more question.
Yeah, we have exactly 2 minutes. So there's actually a class I'm supposed to be coaching, but I'll give you 2
Okay,
more
here we go. Brian, when we see someone like Royce, who's 6'1", 350 pounds, and we have Jason Hopper coming out of, I don't even remember where he won, who's 6'1", 350 pounds, do you think that does that make you think that the programming at semifinals is doing a disservice at finding the good athletes, and that they're going to get smoked at the fucking games because the average height is 5'10", 185? Like, does anything, or are the athletes evolving? Do you see anything that's like, oh shit, like this programming, they're not getting the right dude for the games?
I don't feel that way about either Royce or Jason. I feel like they'll be fine at the games.
Ooh. Awesome. All right. Whew, you dodged a bullet, Royce.
And then we'll go offline and you'll tell the truth.
No, Brian's good as gold. He's a sharp axe. He'll use it if he has to. All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
Yep.